Let's turn to the prophecy of Malachi again. We're going to begin reading at verse 17 of chapter 2, and we'll read through to the end of chapter 3. Just one verse is our text this evening. That's verse 6 of chapter 3. As you come to see, I trust in the course of the sermon, verse 6 needs to be viewed in its context, and the context really of verse 6 is really what precedes it in verses chapter 2:17 through to chapter 3 verse 5 that we looked at last Lord's Day. Let's begin reading at verse 17. There Malachi says to the children of Judah, "You have wearied the Lord with your words. Yet ye say, Wherein have we wearied him? When ye say, Every one that doeth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delighteth in them. Or, Where is the God of judgment? Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. And he shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto the Lord, as in the days of old and as in former years. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. For I am the Lord, I change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Even from the days of your fathers ye are gone away from mine ordinances, and have not kept them. Return unto me, and I will return unto you, saith the Lord of hosts. But ye said, Wherein shall we return? Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, Wherein have we robbed thee? In tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with a curse, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the devourer for your sakes, and he shall not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither shall your vine cast her fruit before the time in the field, saith the Lord of hosts. And all nations shall call you blessed, for ye shall be a delightsome land, saith the Lord of hosts. Your words have been stout against me, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, What have we spoken so much against thee? Ye have said, It is vain to serve God, and what profit is it that we have kept his ordinance, and that we have walked mournfully before the Lord of hosts? And now we call the proud happy, yea, they that work wickedness are set up, yea, they that tempt God are even delivered. Then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it, and a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord, and that thought upon his name. And they shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts. In that day when I make up my jewels, I will spare them, as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. Then shall ye return, and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serveth God, and him that serveth him not. And again, may the Lord give us an understanding of his own word there through the prophet Malachi, and particularly as we look at verse 6 of this passage this evening. Malachi 3:6 then is our text. For I am the Lord, I change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. We live in the midst of a world that is constantly changing. Times change. The 21st century AD is not the same as the 1st century AD. Society changes. Social mores change. Attitudes change. Values change. Interests change. The circumstances of nations change. So too the circumstances of individuals and families. People change. Relationships change. We personally change. We change physically as we mature. We age. Our strength and abilities change. Our mental and intellectual capacities change. Our thoughts change. Strong convictions of the past can wane over time. Our hopes of yesterday become our fears of today. Our plans, our goals, our aspirations are subject to change. The truth is that very few things in this world are not subject to change. In the midst of this world of change, in the midst of the constant change that characterises our lives and the world in which we live, there is one that does not change. There is one that remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that one is God himself. Our covenant-keeping God is unchangeable, or as theologians describe him, he is immutable. He's eternally the same. His plans, his will, his thoughts, his word, his attitudes, his values, his principles, his laws, his promises, his love, his faithfulness never change. Now for the ungodly and those who know not Jesus Christ as their Saviour, the unchangeableness of God ought to be a matter of deep concern. Because what that means is that the God who drove Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden on account of their sin, and the God who destroyed the ungodly world in the days of Noah on account of their sin, and the God who rained down fire upon the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah on account of their sin, and who cut off the 10 northern tribes of Israel on account of their sin, who caused the children of Judah to be taken into captivity on account of their sin, he remains the same. The same God that did those things is the same God today. He's not changed. Men's conceptions of him may have changed. Men may think that he has changed. But note what he declares concerning himself in our text. I am the Lord. I change not. Consequently, as Paul declares in Romans 1 and verse 18, his wrath, his anger against sin, is still revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. God remains a God of truth, of justice, and of righteousness. He is a holy, pure God, and he cannot and will not overlook and wink at sin. Now, while the immutability of God may be a sobering fact for some, it is also good news for others. It's good news for those who are drawn near to him in and through Jesus Christ. Now, God is not merely unchangeable as regards his righteousness and holiness, but he is unchangeable with respect to every aspect of his being. That means that he is unchangeable with respect to his grace, to his mercy, and to his love. He's the same God who provided a way of escape for Noah and his family in the days of the flood. He's the same God who delivered his people from the bondage and slavery of Egypt. He's the same God who paved a way for his people through the Red Sea. The same God who led and provided for his people as they journeyed through the wilderness despite their rebellion. He's the God who provided them with water from the rock. He's the God who gave them manna from heaven. He's the God who graciously gifted to them the land of Canaan. He's the same God today. He remains a God of grace, mercy, and love. He's a God who cares for his children, a God who protects and preserves his children, a God who is faithful to his covenant promises. And so I want to look at that subject this evening under the theme, Our Unchangeable God. To divide the sermon under these three headings: the abiding reality, and secondly, the gracious outcome, and finally, the comforting security. Through Malachi, the Lord declared to the children of Judah, I am the Lord. I change not, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. And he declares the very same thing, brethren, to you and me this evening. He says to us, I am the Lord. I change not. It's worth noting that the verb to be, that is the word am, has been supplied in the King James translation. The King James reads, for I am the Lord. But you'll notice that the word am is in italicised print, which indicates it's been supplied. It doesn't appear actually in the original. Literally, the Hebrew reads, for I, the Lord, change not. I, the Lord, change not. In fact, the Hebrew reads literally, I, Jehovah, change not. And it ought not to escape our attention that this declaration of the unchangeableness of God is set in a particular context. And as we've seen, the book of Malachi contains a series of indictments or charges that the Lord brings against the children of Judah following their return from the Babylonian captivity. And one of those indictments is the indictment that appears in verse 17 of chapter 2. And there, as we saw last Lord's Day, Malachi declares to the children of Judah, ye have wearied the Lord with your words, yet ye say, wherein have we wearied him? And Malachi's, or God's response really is this, when ye say, every one that doeth evil is good in the sight of the Lord, and he delighteth in them, or where is the God of judgment? As we noted last Lord's Day, the children of Judah had returned from the Babylonian captivity with high expectations, but in many respects those expectations had not materialised. And indeed, upon their return to Judah, they had encountered a great measure of discouragement and opposition. This was difficult enough in and of itself, but what made their situation almost unbearable was that when they surveyed the ungodly nations around them, what they saw was that they were prospering, even though those nations had no regard for the Lord. And so the outward prosperity of the their heathen neighbours led many in Judah to question the integrity and faithfulness of the Lord. And that's what we saw in verse 17. There was a sense in which the children of Judah seethed under what they had a sense of, the injustice of God. To their way of thinking, the Lord failed to make any distinction between good and evil. Hence they say, everyone that doeth evil is regarded in the eyes of the Lord, or in the sight of the Lord, as good. Indeed, they concluded the Lord perversely actually delighted in those who engaged in evil. Consequently, many among the remnant in Judah came to the conclusion that there was no justice, no judgment with God, leading them to accusingly ask, "Where is the God of judgment?" The Lord's perceived indifference to evil led many in Judah to long for the coming of the promised Messiah. We mentioned that also last Lord's Day. And they longed for the promised Messiah because they perceived mistakenly that his coming would be the panacea for their suffering and hardship. Messiah, so they thought, would bring with him justice and judgment, which would result in a radical improvement in their physical and material circumstances. In response to these views of the children of Judah, the Lord through Malachi prophesied of the coming of the Messiah. And that's what we read of in verse 1 of chapter 3. "Behold, the Lord whom you seek shall suddenly come to his temple, even the messenger of the covenant, whom you delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts." Malachi prophesied that God himself, in the person of Jesus Christ, was coming. However, having declared that the Lord was about to send the messenger of the covenant, Malachi then pointedly asks this question, or these questions: "But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth?" And the clearly implied answer to both those questions was no one. No one would be able to abide the day of Jesus Christ's coming, and no one will be able to stand when he appeared. Why was that? In a word, sin. Because Jesus Christ at his coming, as Malachi declares, would be like a refiner's fire and a fuller's soap. He would purify and cleanse. He would be like a refiner's fire in that he would separate everything that was precious from the dross, the pure from the impure, the good from the evil. And he would be like a penetrating soap that would discover every impurity, search out and remove every stain, identifying every sin, every fault, so that no blot, nor stain, nor sin would remain unidentified or unaddressed. And the only way that anyone would be able to abide the day of the coming of the messenger of the covenant and stand when he appeared would be if they were refined and purified by the Lord himself and covered in his righteousness. That's Malachi 3 and verse 3. "And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he shall purify the sons of Levi and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto the Lord an offering in righteousness." So there would be those that would actually be refined and purified at the day of the coming of Jesus Christ, and his righteousness would be imputed to them. But what should not escape us, and this is really where our text comes in this evening, what should not escape our attention is that Malachi also reveals that the coming of Jesus Christ would not result in the refinement and purification of all. For many, Jesus Christ would come not for refinement and purification, not for the imputation to them of his righteousness, but he would come for them for judgment and for justice. That's verse 5 of Malachi 3. He says, "I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers. And you deal with the adulterers and the false swearers, those who oppress the hireling in his wages, those who oppress the widow, who oppress the fatherless, and who would turn aside the stranger from his right, those who did not fear the Lord, the Son of God would deal with when he came." And that really brings us to the point of our text this evening. Clearly there are two very different outcomes in relation to the coming of Jesus Christ. For some, the coming of Jesus Christ would result in purification, in the cleansing of them and the imputation of righteousness. But for others, the coming of Jesus Christ would be for judgment and for justice. And so the question that really arises is why? Why these two very different outcomes in relation to the coming of Jesus Christ? Why are some cleansed and purified? Why are some made subject to justice and to judgment and ultimately to everlasting destruction? Why would Jesus Christ come to refine and purify some, but come also for judgment and the destruction of others? Our text supplies really the explanation. Notice our text actually begins with the word for. For I am the Lord. For I am the Lord. And what that indicates is that verse 6 provides the explanation or the reason for the two very different outcomes that would accompany the coming of Jesus Christ. Our text answers the question why. And the explanation for the two very different outcomes is this: I am the Lord. I change not. In other words, verse 6 is the explanation of those things that Malachi has revealed to us in the verses 1 through 5. It's the explanation as to why Jesus Christ at his coming would refine and purify some, while at the same time would enter into judgment with others. Why refine and purify some, but not others? The markedly different approaches warrant an explanation, given that, as we read in the earlier part of Malachi, no one, not even the sons of Levi, could abide the day of Jesus Christ's coming. And furthermore, no one would be able to stand when he appeared. The sons of Levi, along with the sorcerers and the adulterers and the false swearers and all that oppressed a hired worker and his wages and all those that committed sin, would all not be able to stand before Jesus Christ at the day of his coming. All would stand in need of cleansing. All would need to be refined and purified. None possessed the righteousness that allowed them to stand before the judgment seat of Jesus Christ. Yet at his coming, Jesus Christ, we are told here, would purify the sons of Levi, while at the same time he would draw near in judgment for others. And the explanation lies in those words, for I am the Lord, I change not. Those words, in a way as we've already noted, those words point to the unchangeable or immutable character of God. Because of their sins, every citizen of Judah, and the truth is that the same holds true for all of us here this evening, because of their sins, every citizen of Judah deserved to be consumed by the wrath of God. They deserved to be condemned, cast off, and destroyed. But that would not be the lot for every individual among the children of Judah. Not all would be consumed. Why is that? For I am the Lord. Literally, for I am Jehovah. Notice that the Lord, through Malachi, calls attention here to his covenant name, Jehovah. The name Jehovah reveals something of the nature and the character of God. That name reveals God to be the God of the covenant. Indeed, it declares him to be the ever-faithful God of the covenant. It declares him to be the one who establishes and who upholds and maintains the covenant. He's the one who will assuredly fulfill all of the promises of the covenant. He's the one who will assuredly gather unto himself a people in and through Jesus Christ. Notice here then that it's Jehovah, the ever-faithful covenant-keeping God, who declares, I change not. To grasp something of what is being indicated by those words, it's perhaps helpful to reflect upon what we read about at the burning bush in Exodus 3 this evening. You recall there that the Lord appeared to Moses in a burning bush after Moses had fled from Egypt and lived in Midian for around 40 years. At that time the Lord called Moses to return to Egypt and to lead the children of Israel out of the house of bondage. But Moses was actually reluctant to do that, and he proceeded to offer one excuse after another as to why he was unsuitable for the task. And after each excuse had been swept away, finally Moses proffered the excuse that the people would not believe that it was the Lord who actually had sent him. We read there in verse 13 of Exodus 3, Behold, says Moses, when I come to the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And this is the response of God to Moses. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. And God said moreover unto Moses, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, The God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob hath sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. Now that description, I am that I am, reveals a number of things about the Lord, about Jehovah. Firstly, it reveals that he is absolutely independent, absolutely self-existent. In other words, he does not stand in need of anyone or anything outside of himself. He is the altogether self-contained and self-sufficient God. Before God created the heavens and the earth and everything in them, he was not lonely. He experienced perfect fulfillment, satisfaction, and happiness within his triune being. He did not create the world out of a sense of something lacking in himself, or out of a desire to fulfill something that was lacking in himself, or out of a need to complete or fulfill himself. Rather, he created the universe and everything in it according to his sovereign good pleasure. Furthermore, the name I am that I am reveals that the Lord is determined by nothing external to himself. He's not conditioned by any influences outside of himself. He cannot be pressured or coerced by anyone or anything. He has determined all things. He has determined how those things will be accomplished. There is no one over him, no one to whom he is answerable. No one can demand of him, "What doest thou?" There is no one to whom he must adapt. No one and no thing can change him or compel him to change or alter his purpose and plan. He influences all the circumstances of time, but he himself is influenced by none. He determines all things, but he is determined by none. He sustains all things, but he is sustained by none. He creates all things, but he is created by none. He is unchangeable. He has no need of change, and nothing can cause or compel him to change. Indeed, if he were to change, he would not be God. He and all that he has determined is perfect. To change would indicate imperfection. Hence, there is no need for him to change. And so in many ways that description, I am that I am, also leads us to the same truth stated here in our text. I am the Lord, I change not. Now, brethren, for you and me, whether our plans come to fruition depends on factors and forces outside of ourselves. Even our most meticulously crafted plans are dependent on things outside of our control. But that's not true of the Lord. He is sovereignly independent. All things occur as he has ordained. He cannot be coerced. He cannot be compelled. He is the unchangeable God. And his unchangeableness pertains directly to his covenant promises that are fulfilled in Jesus Christ. And here we get closer to the heart of what this text is about. His unchangeableness pertains directly to his covenant promises. He is the covenant-keeping God, and his unchangeableness pertains to him as the covenant-keeping God. The covenant promises which are fulfilled in Jesus Christ. And the Lord here in verse 6 calls attention to his covenant promises. And he does so not only by reference to his name of Jehovah, but he also does so by reference to the description, the sons of Jacob. He says there, therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. The children of Judah, of course, were the natural descendants of Jacob. In the words of our text, they were the sons of Jacob. And in referring to them as the sons of Jacob, the Lord harks back to the fact that he had made his covenant not only with Abraham, but he had also reaffirmed that covenant with both Isaac and Jacob. And so consequently, as the sons of Jacob, the children of Judah were those to whom the covenant promises of God belonged. To those among them whom God had chosen before the foundation of the world, or you could put it in this way, to the elect among them, belonged the promises of salvation in Jesus Christ. Those promises did not pertain to every citizen of the kingdom of Judah, or they didn't apply to every child of Judah head for head, but it did apply to the elect among them. And through his Spirit, God bestowed upon the elect among the children of Judah the blessings of the covenant. He established, or one might say he re-established, his relationship of friendship and fellowship with those who were the elect among the children of Judah. He loved them, and on account of his love for them, he sent his only begotten Son into the world to redeem them. And the Lord here reaffirms his love for the sons of Jacob when he declares, I am the Lord. I am Jehovah. I change not. In those words, the Lord reaffirms to the sons of Jacob that as the ever-faithful God of the covenant, he would never renege on his covenant promises. He would never forsake his covenant promises to them in Jesus Christ. He would redeem them. He would save them. He would bring them unto himself. What he assures the sons of Jacob here is that his love for them would endure forever. I am the Lord. I am Jehovah. I am the ever-faithful God of the covenant, and I change not, and my promises change not. My promises to you will never change. I will fulfill my promises to you. My promises to you are absolutely sure and certain. Now, why does the Lord say that? Why is the need for the Lord to bring that to the attention of the sons of Jacob? If the Lord was a changeable God, if he were not faithful to his covenant promises, then the sons of Jacob would undoubtedly have been consumed. Have been consumed along with the reprobate among the children of Judah. The truth was that the sons of Jacob deserved to be consumed on account of their sins. They deserved to be consumed on account of their sins, in truth, as much as the reprobate among the children of Judah. It wasn't as though all the sins that were being committed in Judah were to be sheeted home to the reprobate in Judah, but the whole of the nation was guilty before God. Even the elect among the children of Judah were guilty of serious sins against the Lord. But here, through Malachi, the Lord reveals that notwithstanding the greatness even of the sins of the sons of Judah, they would not be consumed. The consumption or destruction of the sons of Jacob would have been perfectly just in the light of their sin and their conduct. After all, they were a rebellious and sinful people. As I say, it wasn't just others in Judah that were engaged in sinful conduct. I recall that even after the warning that came from the 10 northern tribes being taken away into captivity, the children of Judah still served other gods. The 10 northern tribes were taken into captivity by the Syrians as a result of their serving of other gods. But that didn't dissuade the children of Judah from going in the same direction. And yet we find that despite the Lord's repeated warnings and corrective measures, this form of disobedience continued unabated among the children of Judah. It's what really caused the Lord to deliver the children of Judah into the hands of the Babylonians. But as we've seen, the Lord did not leave the children of Judah in Babylon, but he restored them to Canaan. In his covenant faithfulness, he enabled his rebellious covenant people to return to the promised land. The temple in Jerusalem was rebuilt, worship was reinstituted, the walls of Jerusalem were repaired. One might have thought that there would have been a radical transformation among the children of Judah. But what we find is that only 100 years after their return from captivity, the children of Judah were engaged again in sinful conduct. And that's what, of course, we began with in the book of Malachi. What were the sins that the children of Judah at this time were committing? Well, they were bringing the lame and worthless as sacrifices to the Lord. They were entering into marriages with the ungodly. They were defiling their own marriages. They were accusing the Lord of unfaithfulness, of not caring for them, of lacking in integrity. And one might wonder how many times did the children of Judah need to be corrected and warned. In truth, it might have been expected that the Lord would have grown weary with them and consumed all of the children of Judah, both the elect and reprobate, in his wrath. Might have been expected furthermore that he would have disannulled his covenant promises and that he would have given the children of Judah over to destruction. Would not that have been perfectly understandable and perfectly reasonable? But such a thought never enters the mind of the Lord. I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. I suppose we could put it this way, brethren. Thankfully the Lord is not like you and me. He's not fickle. He's not unfaithful to his promises. If we were confronted with these same acts of rebellion and of a refusal to do what ought to be done, then in all likelihood we would grow weary. We grow weary with such conduct. But not the Lord. As he declared to Balaam in Numbers 23 and verse 19, he says there, God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent, but he hath said, and notice this, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good? Brethren, this is the nature and the character of our God. He's the God of the covenant. He's the God that fulfills his promises. He is the unchangeable God. And he will uphold and he will maintain his covenant promises. And he will do so notwithstanding the sinfulness of his covenant people. It was on account of the steadfast covenant faithfulness of God that the sons of Jacob were not consumed. As I've said, the sons of Jacob should have been consumed on account of their sins. But because God is who he is, because his promises are sure and amen, the sons of Jacob are not consumed. Jesus Christ would come, and he would offer up his life upon the cross of Calvary in fulfilment of God's covenant promises, and he would redeem the sons of Jacob through the sacrifice of his own life. Now, brethren, the fact that the Lord is the unchangeable, ever-faithful God of the covenant ought to be a comfort to all those who trust in Jesus Christ and who embrace his covenant promises. Now, having said that, the truth, of course, is that you and I are no more deserving of the mercy and grace of God than were the sons of Jacob. Who of us will be able to abide the day of Jesus Christ's coming? And who will be able to stand when he appears? And the reality is none of us, because none of us are righteous. None of us are without sin. None of us are more deserving, none of us are more meritorious than the sons of Jacob. Our lives in so many ways mirror theirs. So often we are sinful, rebellious, unthankful people. And it's also a wonder of God's grace that he does not grow weary of each and every one of us. We too deserve to come under the just judgment of God. And we would be justifiably consumed under the wrath of a righteous and holy God. But thankfully for us, that's not how the Lord deals with the sons of Jacob. It's not how he deals with those who draw near to him in and through Jesus Christ. On account of his mercy and grace, on account of his covenant faithfulness, on account of his covenant promises, on account of his person and being, he does not and never will consume his people in his wrath. But rather he will purify and cleanse his people in and through the shed blood of Jesus Christ. And if we are his people, if we have drawn close to Jesus Christ, he will justify us in his sight, not because of who and what we are, not because we are worthy, but because he is the ever-faithful, covenant-keeping God who changes not. It's because of that fact and that fact alone that the sons of Jacob and that you and I, along with them, are not consumed. Our security, our eternal happiness, our place in glory depends upon the unchangeableness of our God. He will fulfill his covenant promises. He will never let his covenant promises fall to the ground. This is the security of every believer. Do well to remember that verses. I think we read them last Lord's Day actually, out of Ezekiel 16 and verses 60 and 62. Remember there the account describes how that the nation of Israel really was the bride, but who become unfaithful. And the question came up as to whether God would actually abandon his covenant promises, abandon his bride. And you have there in Ezekiel 16 verse 60 this statement: notwithstanding the grossness of the sins of the bride, he says, nevertheless I will remember my covenant with thee in the days of thy youth, and I will establish unto thee an everlasting covenant, and I will establish my covenant with thee, and thou shalt know that I am the Lord. And the word there also is Jehovah. and thou shalt know that I am Jehovah, the covenant-keeping God. Brethren, the unchangeableness of our God is the sure and unmovable rock upon which our salvation rests. For I am the Lord, I change not. Therefore you sons of Jacob are not consumed. Amen.